message from Daniel came first.
I already deleted it or moved it or something. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our work study session on the budget. Do we need a roll call or anything?
Yeah, we'll take a roll call. Councilmember Middleton is absent. Councilmember Nelson.
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here?
Vice Mayor Lopez Taff.
Here.
And Mayor Karpinski Costa.
Present. Thank you.
And just to let the public and the city council know, this meeting is being broadcast live on Metro Cable Channel 14, as well as on our YouTube channel tonight. And with that, the next item is public comment, and I have not received any public comment speaker cards.
Okay.
So with that, we'll move into the fiscal year 25-26 and 26-27 biannual budget overview discussion.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Susan Talwar here, Administrative Services Director, presenting to you tonight the biennial budget workshop. We will tonight be reviewing the fiscal year 25-26 and 26-27 budgets for moving forward tonight. So just also wanted to introduce, tonight I have here with me our accounting manager, Alberto Preciado, and our senior accountant, Dina Jenkins, along with my colleagues from exec team who will be reviewing their respective budgets tonight. Just to go over an overview of what we're doing today, so we will start out primarily in the general fund area, talk about some other city funds, that's our non-general funds, and then moving into our capital improvement program, and then our appropriations, which is also known as the GAN limit. We, on the week of May 12, 2025, did review the general fund contents with the Finance Committee and council members. So starting with our budget approach, our budget typically in most cities, you will see, starts out with a strategic planning session. The budget is aligned with, and the strategic planning focus areas help us inform the budget. That sets the tone of what our priorities will be and what the staff will be working towards. The goal is to maintain a balanced budget, and we have been able to achieve that in the draft form tonight that will be presented to you. We will continue with our fiscal prudence. We remain focused on infrastructure improvements, as you will see later through our capital improvement program. Our goals are to sustain long-term needs through community-identified priorities, and then align operational areas to support near-term needs as well. So just wanted to go briefly over all city funds. Wanted to take a moment to talk about the different buckets of funds that we do have that are typically discussed in our financials. Starting with our largest one, which is the general fund. This is the city's primary operating fund. It pays for the essentials, day-to-day services like your police, library. We don't have a library, but that's typically what's in there, just more generically, but general administration. So that's just to keep everything running that we need at a minimal day-to-day. Next, we have our capital improvement funds. That's our next largest ones. And these are set aside for large, long-term projects, such as our building of roads, upgrading facilities, and replacing our aging infrastructure. Our next one that we have is our special revenue funds at 20%. And these are used for specific purposes. So as an example, we have gas tax for streets repairs or grant funding for any type of community development. They are legally restricted funds and cannot be used for anything other than the purpose that it has been set aside for. And last but not least, we have our enterprise funds, and these operate more like a business. So in our case, we have trash, and the fees pay for the services that are being provided itself. So for 25-26, you can see we have laid out in each of these funds the revenues that we are projecting to receive and the associated expenditures. We are going to take a deeper dive into the general fund more specifically, and also our special and capital funds today. But if you look at overall, our all city funds total, we are expecting a total revenues of about $99 $0.5 million, and our total expenditures are about $98.2 million. We do have transfers out of our general fund reserve of about $4 million that is specifically out for streets. And then just for 26-27, we are projecting about $88.5 million in revenues and total expenditures of about $87.5 million. And again, we do also project to spend out about $4 million towards streets. So moving on to our general fund proposed budget, just reviewing and honing in on our general fund summary here. Going to walk through this a little bit. So we have our amended budget for 24-25 about $45.6 million. We are proposing about $46.09 million, which is about $453,000 more than what we had budgeted. And we'll also go into that in a little more detail here. But for 26-27, we're projecting about $830,000 more than 25-26 at $46.9 million. Expenditures, we have budgeted for this fiscal year 24-25 is $46.8 million. We are proposing a budget of about $44.6 million, and that has come down. A couple of primary reasons. We had a couple of property purchases this year, so that's where you're seeing that dip. And then also we are introducing a vacancy factor, which we are having a public hearing on the actual vacancy, AB 2561 tonight. So that helped us inform that we do, based on our trends, have a vacancy factor of about 8.9%, and we're projecting doing a conservative approach about 5%. And then for 26-27, we're at about $45.7 million, so that's about $1.12 million of an increase. I will say that the team did a great job in keeping our budget pretty flat as far as expenditures, and the majority of what you're seeing here we will discuss tonight, but is just our normal operating inflationary type measures. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our senior accountant, Dina Jenkins, who will review the general fund revenues with you.
Good evening. So the first slide is just a visual representation of how much sales tax the city actually receives from purchases made within the city. So for every dollar that you spend, you're taxed 7.75 cents. And of that 7.75 cents, only a penny of it actually comes to the city. Sales tax is paid to the city through the state of California, who keeps the vast majority of it and then pays the 1 penny on a monthly basis. It typically is about 2 months behind. So this one is for property tax. For every $1 property tax that is spent, only 8.4 cents of it comes to the city. They're usually issued in 3 payouts throughout the year. The largest of 55% of it is issued in December. The second is 43% in May, and then the remainder of it is issued in August. This graph shows how a big part of the how the relationship between all the different revenues that the city has. So sales tax is 30% of our total revenues, whereas property tax is 18% of our total revenues. It just shows how much more we rely on sales tax over our property taxes. So this chart is similar to some of the numbers that you saw on the previous slide. The first column is our 24 actuals. Second is the budget, the amended budget for fiscal year 25, and then our projected year-end actuals. Fiscal year 26, that's our proposed budget, and then the variance between fiscal year 25 and 26. The final 2 columns are our proposed budget for fiscal year 27 and the variance between 26 and 27. So I'll just briefly go down the variance columns, and then we'll go into a little more detail on the next slide. So taxes and franchises will increase $757,000 in fiscal year 25 and $621,000 in fiscal year 27. Licenses and permits will decrease in fiscal year 26 by $185,000 and stay relatively flat for fiscal year 27. Intergovernmental revenues will increase by $415,000 in fiscal year '25 and $441,000 in fiscal year 26 and '27. Use of money, which is essentially the profits from investments, will decrease by about $500,000 for a net increase in total revenue of 453 that we saw on the previous slide for fiscal year '26 and 829 for fiscal year '27. So property tax is driven largely by property values and ownership transfers. So that's where you're seeing the increase in property taxes that are coming in. Those projections are given to us through an outside source, HDL, and city staff regularly meets with them to update those projections. Sales and use tax is
Can I
increasing.
interrupt 1 second? Can we ask our questions as you go along, or do you want us to wait till the end? 'Cause
Sure.
I hate to have to you go find a slide that someone might have a question on.
Sure.
So Councilmember Schaefer has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to clarify, so our investments are going down. Why is that happening? I just want everybody to know why our investment revenue is going down.
Yes, it's going down because we planned on spending more in infrastructure in the next year, and less money in investments mean less profit from those investments.
That's what it's for, though.
Yes, that's what it's
Absolutely.
for.
Thank you.
And we also did reduce, we're also incorporated in anticipation of potential reduction in interest rates, so taking a conservative approach there as well.
Okay, thank you.
So sales and use tax, those numbers actually do reflect the shift in the local economy. License and permits, we projected a decrease there due to a reduction in construction as a result of increased tariffs and interest rates. Intergovernmental revenues, much like property taxes, are tied to the property tax value, so increases there. And then the reduction in investment revenue, I just went over, so thank you.
Good evening, Council. Alberto Preciado, Finance Manager. Just going to go over some of the general fund expenditures, and Director Talwar was kind enough to do a lot of that for me already. The staff is proposing operating expenditures of $44.6 million for fiscal year '26 and $45.7 million for fiscal year '27. The departments will be speaking to their respective budgets. As Director Talwar mentioned, we are factoring in a vacancy factor for these 2 fiscal years, which is the first time we've done that. This is a best practice in municipal budgeting. We're taking into account how many of our positions are vacant over the years, during the year, and will cause savings in salary and benefits. So these numbers do include both operating expenses and salary and benefits. The other item that wanted to highlight was the use of reserves. Again, as Director Talwar mentioned, they are lower for fiscal years '26 and fiscal year '27 as a result of we don't have that property purchases budgeted that we had in fiscal year '25. And then we wanted to give the council a visual representation of the distribution of our general fund expenditures by department. As is typical, our public safety expenditures are the larger portion of our expenditures, with PD having 57% of our general fund expenditures.
Just ask it.
Can you roll one slide back, please? General fund by debt, that could be really misleading. We don't have any debt that I'm aware of unless you're,
PT, not EDB.
oh, by department, I'm sorry. Sorry, my bad.
But yes, this is by department, not by debt. Thank you for clarifying.
DEP. Don't.
So with that, each of the departments will now review their respective general fund expenditures, starting with City Manager Ashley Feeney.
Great, thank you, Director Talwar. As Director Talwar opened up, The budget is something that's really a statement of community priorities and values, and the council really sets that through your strategic planning retreats that you hold with our executive team. And this budget is certainly tailored to meet those strategic planning objectives that we have identified throughout the course of the year, and then also meet kind of ongoing priorities that have been established based upon past policies that this council's adopted that we continue to implement as we carry out quality of life improvements for residents and businesses here in the city. I also want to extend my gratitude, as Director Talwar said, to the department heads to come in with, what the needs are versus really kind of what the desires are, and then making compelling arguments on when we're talking about expenditures, how those are going to get at those very priorities that the council and the community wants to see. So I felt like we had a very productive process as we're preparing for this next two-year budget, and that went really well. So compliments to the team, and I know that's not just department heads, but that carries down throughout the organization with all of our managers, and then the idea flow that comes through the balance of the team. I also want to note that this was in the staff report, the city council, you too engaged very much in budget preparation. We had individual council meetings to kind of talk through and review all the revenues and expenditures and answer a lot of very good questions with individual council members as we prepare for this budget workshop. And then as part of this budget workshop, the community's watching from home or here at the meeting, certainly they have the opportunity to provide their feedback and thoughts on what the proposed budget is, and then ultimately we'll come back at the June meeting, that first meeting in June, and I know Director Talwar will hit on this towards the end of the presentation on when the adoption would be proposed by the city council. So going through the city manager's office, from additional requests that have come forward, we really don't have a lot from the individual line items that are outside of some of the inflationary factors and kind of the salary and benefit items. From a overall city council line item budget, we did add about $17,500 annually to our meetings and conferences. One, we're finding as we sign up for those, they've gone up in cost, and so has airfare and things of that nature when there are conferences that require that type of travel. So we have some additional dollars put forward on that. We also have found that there's a great benefit to having the city council engage in meaningful meetings and conferences where we actually are able to get great idea flow coming back here to the city to help advance some of the priorities that we're working on here. So that is an additional line item expenditure. For a city attorney, we've been getting some great efficient legal services, so we actually brought the reduction down. Or we actually brought our projection down, so we reduced what we had projected previously for attorney service or legal services based on billing trends. And then for city clerk, you can see that we have, again, made some reductions that are based upon actuals and projected cost needs. However, in fiscal year 26-27, we do have an election that's occurring, so certainly you'll see a cost for that election that's represented in that fiscal year. So not a lot of additions or kind of movements in here outside of what I just described.
So if we were to add an item to the election ballot, a local item, how much does that generally add to the projection?
I'll look to
Amy
City
would
Clerk
know.
Van to expand on that.
It would add a little bit of an additional cost. I would say maybe between $7,000 to $10,000, just roughly. I'd have to do a cost estimator, but that's just based on my past experience.
Okay.
The other thing we can do with the two-year budget, we do have those opportunities where we do, a mid-year check-in with the council. We do a mid-cycle check-in as part of that 2 year or so. And we do propose amendments at that time if we have an upcoming cost item that we know about, or let's say the council says, hey, we want to move forward on this project, we can go ahead and amend the budget accordingly. So if we knew that there was going to be, a local measure or something like that, we could absolutely do that. Are there any questions for me on my line items that I just covered?
No.
Not, I'll go ahead and move it on to the next department.
I just want to say our city attorney is a bargain. And he's good.
Good evening, Council. I'm Megan Huber, Economic Development and Community Engagement Director. Reviewing this department's budget, you can see we're remaining consistent in our forecast from last cycle to this cycle with a few tune-ups, some pulling of the dials and levers to make sure we have our economic development and community engagement strategic goals in mind as we move forward to the next 2-year cycle. Before I go too deep into those, I wanted to share a success story, and that is when we talked about this department's budget about this time 2 years ago, we set a goal to reach a full subscription rate on all of our economic development and community engagement grant programs, and I'm happy to report we are almost there, which means the grant funding that we've allocated is doing really good work on business attraction, marketing, events, and supporting our community organizations, which is really exciting, and we're looking forward to doing that the next 2-year cycle as well. So moving on to what this looks like for the next 2 years of projections. Really, when we made some changes in the budget, we implemented some forecasting of the tools that were laid out in the unanimously approved by City Council Economic Development Work Plan. And that included things like marketing and analytics software to support active business recruitment prospecting. It included some funding for supplemental bandwidth to promote and produce our small business support marketing. An example of that is the Love Local campaign that is supporting our Phase 2 Auburn Boulevard businesses as construction has commenced. And then past that, economic development, communications, and marketing generally speaking. Moving into communications, we've also forecasted some goals to refresh our CARES campaign. We approved the banners and signage the previous 2-year cycle, and we'll be looking to refresh those in a second iteration of our CARES campaign to promote blight abatement with our community. And in addition, we have a continued goal of a focus on non-electronic communications, things like hard copy mailers, brochures, info sheets, et cetera, to make sure our residents and businesses all have equitable access to city information. And then our community engagement programming still includes our neighborhood improvement partnership grants, our nonprofit community support grants, and our history and arts grant. And then finally, continuing our good work in grant strategy, which has delivered about $15 million in submissions between grants and federal appropriations the previous 2 fiscal years. In terms of what that looks like in our forecast,
Megan,
certainly.
Vice Mayor has a question.
Yeah, if you can go back to what, yes. I just wanted to make a comment here because I really think sometimes our public does not understand the CARES banners and signage refresh. That may sound like a bit much, but I personally believe that if we are going to truly care about our community, our banners need to look like we care, and our signage needs to reflect, again, our values. The other thing I want to comment on are the mailers. Those are really, really valuable. I see all the time my neighbors pulling them out and saying, hey, I understand this is on the calendar, and I have a yard sign for our neighborhood. And so I really, really appreciate that. And I know you do a media roundup very regularly for us, and it looks like many of our stories are being covered in the media, so I really believe that's important, so thank you.
Thank you.
We interrupted your flow.
That's okay, I can pick it right back up. Other duties as assigned. So in summary, some other tweaks included a reduced economic development support grant, because as council recalls, we re-implemented our business attraction incentive program, which will come before you for consideration on a case-by-case basis. And then we added additional marketing and promotion initiatives that we reviewed on the previous slide. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
May I just add one item too, on this economic development support grant that Director Huber is speaking to? Certainly those guidelines as part of the economic development work plan that she'd presented and this council approved previously has that business attraction grant incentive program still alive and well. and it's an active program that people can apply for. If we did have a business that the council really wanted to see locate here that had a compelling pitch as to what incentive they needed that the council wanted to approve, those dollars would come out of like a general fund reserve in order to get that business located here. So I just wanted to mention, while it says reduced, it's still an active program, and it's really up to the council to determine what an appropriate incentive would look like. Of course, we'd have our recommendations
All
around.
you got to do is come to us and ask us, how about this incentive? Sometimes we don't know about things, so.
So I have a question, Mayor, and I have a quick question for you, Megan. So when we do an economic incentive grant where we're trying to incentivize a business to come here, we're certainly putting up our funds or putting our funds at risk. But ultimately, especially when we talk about retail or sales tax, that's really to the benefit of the county and the state. Are there any economic development grants that we can pursue as a city for the purpose of, because they're benefiting from it, we're putting our money forward. Is there any money from the state or the federal government that we can offer to businesses to locate here or to?
Good question.
It's a great question, and it's one that we need to ask ourselves consistently and often and stay mindful to any and every opportunity that's out there. As an example, our Activate Auburn program that helps with facade improvements had a match from SACOG for a number of years. So that's a great example of how to combine a regional pot with a local pot for maximum impact that supports our businesses. So we're always looking. Economic Development Administration is another source that we look to regularly and often. There's a regional office out of Seattle that we're in regular contact with, and they're very familiar with our economic development goals and our approved economic development work plan as well. One final thing I'll say on that is we do as much advocacy as possible in exactly the space that you're talking about through our appropriations and grants work as well. So there are economies of scale because we have and execute our grant strategy so that we can stay proactive and mindful of all of those opportunities that are out there.
One more question, Megan. Just for our public's general knowledge, because we have two lines now that were generated from one line, can you just explain the reason why we broke out now economic development as its own line and community engagement?
I would look to Director Talwar as the subject matter expert on that.
So basically, it's more from better to be able to analyze. I mean, Director Huber essentially has two divisions within her department. We have the community engagement component and the economic development. It is consistent with what we see with other agencies as well. It's a best practice. Plus, it helps better inform each of those programs just as any other division.
Thank you.
And I think there were two different objectives in the old days of the strategic planning to have economic development and community engagement.
And still is. We have our economic development goal as well as our community vibrancy goal.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good going. Next? Who's next?
So administrative services would be next. As you know, administrative services, our team provides internal customer service support predominantly. That would be from human resources. We provide our internal benefits, any assistance that staff or even council may need. Information services, that's the technology that we have to keep everything going and connected. Risk management we'll talk about as well a little bit, which is predominantly insurance-related and workers' comp. And then we have finance, which we're here today for, and then our non-departmental, which covers everything else, or our unfunded liabilities and whatnot, as an example. So in finance, we will be issuing two RFPs. Those are requests for proposals, one in banking services and one in audit. We are coming up on our audit term, and we have to go through that churn as well. And then for banking services, just to kind of see out there what kind of refresh maybe we need on services. Another objective that we have is the financial strategic plan, and that plan basically helps inform all of our internal service funds that we spoke about a little bit, which is those transfers out to reserves, so how funding our maintenance of fleet, and then our information technology as well, and our facilities. So getting that on a plan and putting everything together, taking account of what we have, and going forward with that. Human resources, as part of our strategic initiative, we are going to be focusing on employee training and development. Succession planning is key for us here as well. Risk management, we have noticed an increase in an insurance liability. In the area of information technology, there has been a big spike in there, and that's predominantly related to the fact that we started in our last budget cycle to centralize all of our city software, and the only component that was left was the police department. So this is the last bit. So you're seeing a dip, and you'll hear also from Chief Turcotte, the transition from their software, anything related to police department is now in the information technology in the IT department. We are going to continue with the implementation of our Tyler Munis enterprise system. And there is also a new software request, Placer AI, which is an economic development software to help with some city analytics. In the area of non-departmental, our biggest one there was the unfunded actuarial liability. So that is PERS liability of the type of risk that we have, if you will, or pension-associated increases. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question on the unfunded liability. So under the page that has the actual numbers on it, it says our unfunded liability for 25-26 is 3.4 million. Is this the part that's what we owe for the fact that they invested poorly, and so now we have to bring in?
No, that total is not that. So that the non-departmental does not just include, that's the major one key point. In a non-departmental, we have, as an example, we have included in there the recent Belmar trip. We have some professional services set aside in there as well. We have our benefits also that kind of goes in there. We have our compensated absences. So there's a few line items that are in there. We have our overall, events that's also in there, city events. So there's quite a few components that build up to that.
So we still have a UAL, though?
Yes.
Unfunded. So how far behind are we on it?
We're not necessarily.
We catch up every year a little bit more?
It's kind of a little bit of a moving target. Alberto, did you want to explain a little bit?
We're over 70% funded as of last actuarial evaluation that is based on the fiscal year 23 numbers. CalPERS is about a year to 2 years behind on their actuarial evaluation. So when we're doing calculating what our unfunded actuarial liability is, it is always a little bit in arrears. So we do a prepayment every year. So I take that back. It's not a prepayment. We do have a payment down of our unfunded actuarial liability every year, and it is affected by the investment gains for CalPERS. So depending on whether they have a good year, then we have a lower
My question
UAL.
is, does it benefit us to make an extra, it's like when you have a mortgage, and if you make that extra mortgage payment, you can pay your house off sooner. Does it benefit us to make an extra payment to save money on the tail end of the interest that they charge us?
There are pros and cons to making the extra payments, and some of it is related on how well the market has done that year or the year before. If we make an extra payment, for example, and the market crashes or the rates fall significantly, then it won't make that much of an impact in our payments, because we'll have an additional normal cost to pay due to the missing of the investment targets by CalPERS. So I think this year, the CalPERS is looking at a 6 point. I think they recently revised it. We can get you more information on that certainly.
I just wonder whenever, because I'm not sure, I remember even approving a payment for, unless it's parts of the budget that we just say, okay, pay it.
Correct.
I'm just wondering if we ever make those additional payments to bring our thing down from 70% and get it a little more closer to 100% funded.
So basically, some agencies have paid, and what we've noticed, I'll kind of give you the pros and cons. Some agencies have paid, and what they've noticed is they still have a payment due. When you're talking about an actuarial liability, it's a little bit of a moving target, and as Finance Manager Preciado mentioned, it's because of how the market is doing. So we're going to always have this moving target that we're trying to approach depending on the market.
But our PEPRA employees, we don't have a very big number for them, right?
That's correct. So now as we're seeing more Pepper folks come in, we're seeing that getting phased out, the classic members.
And the investment portion is a portion of what factors into our UAL payment, but there's also things, recently CalPERS did some changes to the way that they calculate some of their actuarial factors, as in, for example, the longevity of the retirees and the medical costs for the rising medical costs. So those have pushed up. So even if we have a
A
good
little bit
investment
longer,
year,
Healthier lives.
right, so it is a little challenging to try to see where it will go in the next several years. And we have a little bit of a trigger there that we can see with
Well, if
the
there's ever an
valuation
opportunity
being
to Pay
behind.
off some of it ahead of time. If that ever comes up, just bring it to Ash and he'll bring it to us and we can,
Well, as an example, this current fiscal year, we had a savings, and so they reduced our payment. We budgeted an amount, and we came in about $366,000 below was our payment. So that's what I mean by, we're budgeting based on their action, what they're projecting, and then when it comes time, they may say, you know what, we've done well, $366,000 was our saving this year. We did not have to pay that. So we'll keep an eye, and we'll keep you guys posted on that as we do.
you know, the guy that
through mid-year.
runs, the guy that makes the investments for PERS himself makes a salary of over $1 million a year. It's like, yeah.
I'm not sure.
I have a question. I want to roll back to the general fund revenue. And that is, I see franchise fees for solid waste and I see regular franchise fees. What's the difference between, I understand the solid waste is that's the franchise fees are for garbage essentially. What other franchise fees do we have?
We have other ones for cable, telecommunications, and I believe those are the major ones.
Like the utility tax and I pay
Correct.
my cell phone and all that. Okay, just, okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for you answering my question. We saved the biggest for last.
Well, I'm not last by any stretch. There's a lot more to go tonight. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Alex Turcotte, your police chief. For the police department, definitely a significant portion of the budget here, but you can see we're forecasting here in the next fiscal year a net savings. A good portion of that has to do with what Director Talwar talked about moving some of our IT expenses more appropriately under IT. Also coupled with some reduction in fees. For instance, our booking fee, we're looking at that going down, which is a good thing for us as well. And moving along, some of the items that we'll be working on this year from the police department. These are strategic goals that were informed by council as well, enhancing the cleanliness and appearance of commercial areas through our code enforcement to help support economic development and the shop local experience. Enhancing accountability and rehabilitation measures for chronic nuisance offenders. Evaluate and recommend options for community prosecutor. With this one, I think we've shared this with council before, but currently we're working on a partnership. We've actually put a request in with the city of Folsom to partner on half of a community prosecutor that we feel is probably the sweet point there to best serve both communities. So we're waiting on a response from that, and we're moving forward with those as well. This year, we'll also be undergoing a renewal of our city emergency operations plan. That's not police-specific, that's citywide for continuity of government. That last one was done over 5 years ago, so it needs to be refreshed. We'll be working on training on that as well. And then also evaluating our city municipal code to follow best practices for animal control licensing and microchipping for pets. Some of the adjustments to the budget we spoke of already was moving items to the appropriate department, such as software management to IT. Some of the items adjusted higher for known cost increase, like the animal shelter, and various contracts like Redflex that go up according to CPI. Other items that were adjusted is we moved fleet in the previous budget over to general services, so kind of more appropriate for them to handle that piece, but there's some accessory equipment that needs to be stocked in those vehicles, and so we made an adjustment to our budget to be able to do some of the expendable equipment like first aid bags or road flares and things like that to make sure that they're fully stocked. With that, I relinquish my time unless you have any questions. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Regina Cavier, General Services Director. So these listing for general services. So first, general services is not funded solely on general fund. We are also the recipients and the stewards of various other revenue sources, such as special revenues and franchise fees. And so we work throughout our 5 divisions that we have, utilizing opportunities where we can use some of our special funds, but in many cases, we still do rely on some of our general funds. And in many of those cases, those general funds that are utilized are also reimbursed. And so I believe City Manager Feeney had explained in some of his meetings to council as we requested a couple of different FTEs or increase in our full-time employment positions to augment some of our services and to increase our services to the community. One of those being a inspector for the community, and this is for under our encroachment permit and kind of our maintenance and operations position. So that type of a position, since 2016, we've been utilizing contract services for that position. By bringing it in-house, it actually allows for an opportunity for us to increase our revenues from that position, to be able to bill those services out for things like development projects and encroachments. So we'll be able to offset all of those costs and also do some cost recovery on our overhead as well. So we have increase in proposed expenditures under various line items supporting our community events, just as costs continue to go up as we're putting these events on. Our event operations, we have the major event center as well as the Sylvan Center. While most of our events that we do have over at the Sylvan Center do not cover our costs, we will be spending this next year analyzing costs that we have for operating the building and also having a replacement fund available so we can do some of those necessary deferred maintenance on that building. Sayonara Center, for the most part, is pretty flat. We do baseline levels of service to the Sayonara Center because it is maintained and operated by Campus Life.
Is that a general fund, or is that
It
the
is general
CDBG
fund.
money that we give them to?
No, we use general fund money for that, and it's just for basic maintenance of the building. On an occasion, we do have, where we run into some of the appliances that we've had to replace just due to wear and tear over the years, but for the most part, they maintain their facility for us. So for our engineering, that does reflect some of our increase in costs for engineering services, non-billable services that we cannot attribute to any major development projects where there's cost recovery opportunity or transportation projects. Again, our facility management encompasses this building as well as our police department building and the utility building in the back. And then our fleet management encompasses the police department's fleet as well as our general pool fleet. So for general services, as I mentioned, we do have other special revenues that provide for many of our services that we provide for out of General Services Department. So this includes general fund funded services as well as special revenues. So for community services, increase our community education on SB 1383, which is our organics, and continue educating our NCU policy changes to our community. So this was an adopted policy from council to ensure that we are in alignment with our beautification and trying to reduce the amount of blight that stems from the NCU program. And we'll be issuing an RFP for residential solid waste services contract in advance of that contract expiring in '27. Community center and events will increase our rental opportunities at the event center. We have invested a substantial amount of funds this last fiscal year on repainting, our lighting, and different enhancements at the event center, including a renaming. So we are looking at any opportunity to increase rental opportunities of that building. We'll explore vendor and educational partnership offerings at the senior center. This was another strategic goal that was adopted by council to see how we can best leverage that senior facility. And analyze and make recommendations for the Sylvan Center rental fee schedule. And I see I have a typo on there, I apologize. Engineering to deliver our multi-year pavement resurfacing projects in alignment with the 3-year preservation plan. This is funded largely by the general fund of $4 million a year, along with other special revenues. We have our complete construction of the Auburn Boulevard Complete Streets Phase 2 project. We also received general fund dollars this past fiscal year to help fund the joint trench efforts of that project. We'll be constructing our San Juan Complete Streets Phase 1B and launch the Traffic Control Cabinet Art Program, including issuing an RFP for wrapping services and issue a call for artist artwork. On our facilities and fleet, we'll perform deferred maintenance and interior enhancements at the Sylvan Community Center, initiate design and construction of renovation enhancements to the old Auburn property. This will be to support our animal services. and manage our capital vehicle replacement program and come to council in the future to make recommendations for some of our replacements for this next fiscal year. And under our operations and maintenance, continue our beautification crew partnership with the Citrus Heights Police Department for enhanced service delivery. We are excited that council will be considering incorporating our 2 positions that are our beautification team into our full-time roster, so we will be able to continue that in perpetuity and service the community. And increase our mill and fill output to support our 3-year pavement preservation plan. We'll hold 2 community service volunteer events focusing on refreshing public spaces. This is our events that we do every year that Armando Velasquez quarterbacks. And then expand use of our vegetation management services to address open space and reduce carbon footprint. That's me. And that's it. If you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Well, number one, I worship the ground you walk on. The amazing work you and your department do is truly amazing. What you did run over really quickly is a little bit of a sore spot for me, that's SB 1383. And that was a mandate that was passed by the state. We didn't have any control over that, and it did drive our costs up,
Which
period.
one's 1380? Oh, the garbage?
Yes, that's the collection.
Swill bucket?
Table,
The swill bucket, I call it.
a swill bucket, whatever you want to call it.
So as we dive down the journey of issuing the RFP for residential solid waste services, my team will be coming back to council with different opportunities for education and some of our findings as we visit other locations, other jurisdictions that have been able to address the 1383 mandates for the organics and looking to see what other options there are without opening up too much, but maybe reducing from 3 containers to 2 containers. So that will be things that we will be looking at over the next year.
And the key thing to note there, that was an unfunded mandate. That was something we had to do, but got no funding for it.
Correct.
So the ratepayers paid for it, and we paid for some.
Tell me something if you know. Originally, when this organic recycling came out, they were gonna have, recycling investigators to make sure they make sure you didn't do it wrong. And did they do that?
Yes, they
Take
do.
pictures? Are they doing that?
Yes, they are, to make sure that we are in compliance.
Yes, my neighbor got a ticket,
He did?
got a warning anyway.
For putting garbage in his trash or
Correct.
trash in his recycling?
This particular
Contaminants.
one was for contaminating the green waste.
With what? Oh, we
Plastic.
put it in a green waste instead of.
Put plastic in his green waste.
Oh, plastic in his green waste. What's a body to do?
No other questions?
No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Regina.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Casey Kempner, your Community Development Director. I know we're tight on time, so I'll just go quickly. So you probably remember 2 years ago, Community Development Department was able to eliminate a couple positions or transition them to other departments. We're continuing with that moving forward. We're a small but mighty team, but we're able to keep up with the work that we have, so we're recommending staying flat for the next 2-year cycle. Next slide, please. From a building and safety perspective, we are updating for state and federal laws. There's a new building code cycle coming up, and part of significant work that our building official is going to be doing is working with our regional partners to make sure that we can minimize code obstacles for repurposing of existing buildings. And so that's a major focus as that cuts forward, working with our regional partners and getting that adopted by the council in the fall. Housing grants, Sayonara Drive is a major focus for us. That's getting ready to launch here very shortly. CDBG Consolidated Plan outlines how we spend the CDBG dollars over the next 5 years, and continued housing and human services support. From the planning side of the shop, where we have Sunrise Tomorrow is a major focus for the department and the council and the whole team. We continue to help support general services through trail and multimodal planning, expanding our trail network. We are waiting for the launch of our permit software, updated permit software for Tyler. And last but not least, one of the council's strategic objectives is related to expanding the urban forest canopy in the city. And so that's another focus for us this year. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Casey, I commented this a couple of years ago when this first happened, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate you giving up those positions to other departments to keep our city fiscally strong.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Briefly, we just wanted to touch on a couple of things that are other general fund considerations. First, we wanted to provide the council with an update on our ARPA award. The city received $15.7 million in ARPA funding. That entire amount has been committed, and as of March 31st, $13.7 million have been spent, leaving about $2 million in committed funds. And we've talked about these items in some of the other slides, the transfers to reserves of 1.06 million and 1.11 million, and then 4 million annual transfers to streets projects. And then, as we mentioned earlier as well, the budget contains a 5% salary vacancy factor.
So I just wanted to take a moment to go over the position requests. As Director Cave and Chief Turcotte mentioned, we do have a couple of position changes. One is the beautification team. That would be an impact of 2 FTE changes with no additional funding required. The funding has been incorporated since they have been limited term on here with us for the past few years. And I think council and the team has noticed that there has been a difference when we have not seen during that time off where we had the Christmas break as an example, that we saw the impact to the city, and there is a need still to continue that. The construction inspector would be a one FTE change. It would produce, as Director K mentioned, a savings to general fund. That is a net impact of what we're paying for contract services versus what we could do with it in-house. The traffic light technician is a 1 net FTE change, would be funded not through general fund, but through special funds, and would still result in a savings, allowing us to do more with those savings in our special funds. The custodian is a 0.25. We have about a 3/4 custodian right now, and it would be an increase to the expense. So we will see a slight increase in expenses to general fund for that quarter position. The senior facility attendant, there is no FTE change as that is a limited term position. However, it's a small impact to our general fund salary and benefits. And that's basically allowing the communities, the event center, to have a senior there, more of a team lead on the weekends, which is something that we were noticing is missing for the management of that. And we have the POP sergeant, which is about a $37,000 increase to general fund. No FTE change as that was used from a police officer position to this POP sergeant. So overall, we're looking at a request of about 4.25 positions. It would require about 46,000 additional funding in general fund, and special funds would result in a savings of 60,000. Just a brief overview before we head into the rest and the capital improvement. So as we mentioned, we have about $4 million, and Director Cave will be going over the capital improvement program here, which also includes the Old Auburn facility improvements of about $500,000. And we do have the position request. Oh, sorry about my typo there. It current is 210.75 with the additional request of 214, it should say, or 215. Just wanted to briefly go over the 10-year forecast here. As you can see, and this is kind of what we were speaking to as far as the vacancy factor, we are projecting for our current fiscal year of 24-25 about $4.6 million in net operating position here. For the next 2 years, you can see that our net operating position is about 1.4 million in 25-26 and about 1.1 million in 26-27. We are remaining consistent with our $4 million in street repairs, and we have here the Auburn facility improvements for about $500,000, leaving us with ending reserve balances that certainly meet the city council policy of 17%, about 25 million over that, and the city manager's target reserve policy of about 25%, which is you can see we're about 20 million over that. So overall, I mean, our net position is increasing over time, and we are able to spend and contribute towards streets. The Finance Committee did meet on and review this on May 12th and as well as May 23rd. We reviewed the proposed budget. Committee recommendation regarding the allocation. Committee had a recommendation regarding the allocation of neighborhood area funds for City Council consideration. There was the current approach was discussed, where staff proactively issues neighborhood area funds. And the recommended approach was to a simple annual application process for both REACH and individual neighborhood areas. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Director Kay for the Capital Improvement Program.
Good evening. So for the CIP program, state law does require that we produce a CIP program. It covers a 5-year planning horizon and programs funds for 2 fiscal years, consistent with the city's 2-year budget cycle. The CIP does not allocate these funds, but rather we use this as a planning tool to be able to project any of our revenues and expenditures for the upcoming fiscal years, and as well as secure some of our grant funds that we already know that we can plan on. And prior to inclusion in the CIP, projects are reviewed for consistency with the city's general plan, and also must be found to be consistent with the city's general plan by the Planning Commission, which was completed last night. Before you is the 5-year look ahead. Over the next 5 years, we have 18 projects and/or programs over the next 2 fiscal years that we will be delivering, in addition to our day-to-day operations. So for our advanced, I'm not going to go over every project that was in the CIP. I'm just going to do an overview. So advanced traffic management system, this continues to be a priority for us as we invest in our infrastructure to support our traffic management system. If you've ever gone into our city engineer's office before, you can see she has screens, and that's where we manage and maintain a lot of our traffic signal operations. This helps to increase our connectivity of signalized intersections to improve traffic congestion throughout the community. It is derived from gas tax and Measure A safety funds, and is consistent with or supports the council's 3-year strategic goal to maintain public infrastructure. Arcade Cripple Creek Trail Project, the Mariposa Avenue extension. This is a half-mile extension of the existing Arcade Cripple Creek Trail running from Sayonara to Mariposa. This project derives from an ATP grant, and staff time is identified as in lieu match funds for right-of-way design and construction, and again, supports council's strategic goal. Our Arcade Cripple Creek Trail Project, this is another extension for Sylvan to Stock Ranch. This will help those that live or reside on the east side of Sylvan to be able to cross over Sylvan and to get to the existing Stock Ranch Nature Preserve, and will help to continue our existing creek network. Project funding is derived from a carbon reduction grant, and again, staff time has been identified as matching funds. The grant awarded for only design, environmental, and right-of-way, we will still continue to pursue grant funds for construction, and again, supports council's strategic goal. Auburn Boulevard Complete Streets Phase 2 is well underway for about 9 months now. The contractor has completed all of the joint trench and is working on the west side of the boulevard on all the civil improvements, working very rapidly as the utility companies are out there dropping electrical and communication lines. And we continue with the civil improvements with sidewalk, ADA, compliant facilities, updated signalized intersections, the gateway that will be coming into the city, and finishing off with a full road resurfacing and restriping. Funding is derived from multiple grants through SACOG, through CTC, through the Placer Sacramento Gateway grant program, and augmented funds with our local transportation, utility contributions, and stormwater utility. And again, another project that supports council's strategic goal. For facilities enhancements, maintenance, and information technology, this is a new section that we included in the CIP. And this is basically to identify how we will be spending some of our GenCap replacement funds, specifically for facilities and for IT. Project includes different air conditioning and boiler replacements. We have about 14 units just over at the police department alone. And so over time, as those units are failing or showing age, we're having to replace them, since that is a 24-hour operation. We'll be working on some interior renovations for the Sylvan Community Center, exterior painting of this building. This building was not painted or sealed, so to maintain our investment, we will be working on repainting City Hall, and designing and initiating renovations of the Old Auburn property for the animal services. There's also proposed facilities and IT projects and enhancements funded by the general capital replacement, such as servers and printers. And this overall category supports council's strategic goal to maintain public infrastructure. Intelligent Transportation System Enhancements, this works alongside with our Advanced Traffic Management System. This was a $1.6 million grant that we received through congressional appropriations, and we are actually working on leveraging these funds in concert with RT for another grant, and if awarded, we will get another $1.6 million that we can put towards our intelligent transportation systems, because this program supports transit routes.
Is that the one we voted for at STA?
Yes, yes. So this project will install fiber optics and traffic signal equipment upgrades along our critical corridors. We have a lot of old copper out there that needs to be replaced, and this project and program supports council strategic goal. Pavement restoration, very excited about pavement. We have work going on Sunrise as we speak. This project provides for annual resurfacing throughout the city in alignment with our 3-year pavement preservation plan. And again, we focus best we can on our arterials and just streets in general that continue to collect a lot more traffic than our local residential, but we still do have room and capacity within our plan for residential streets. Funding is derived from SB1, gas tax, measuring maintenance, and of course our general fund dollars, as well as CDBG and stormwater funds specifically for ADA and stormwater enhancements. And again, this supports the council's strategic goal. And San Juan Avenue Complete Streets Phase 1B will continue all of our efforts that we did on 1A from Chest Line to Spicer. Improvements will include our ADA, bike, and transit facilities, full road resurfacing, and new streetlights. Project derived from a SACOG Maintenance and Modernization Grant, as well as matching and augmented funds from SAC-RT will be participating. We also have utility contributions and TDA bike ped funds. And this is another project that supports council strategic goal. And before you is our 2-year funding plan. So you can see all the different funding sources that we have. I believe for 25-26, approximately 58% of the funds to support all of these programs are outside grants and outside funding opportunities. So you can see your staff is hard at work trying to bring other revenue sources in to perform these projects.
That's why you rock.
The whole team does.
You, plural.
Mayor? So Regina, going back to that last slide, there's been a lot of talk of whether CBDG, that's Community Block Development Grants, right?
Community Development Block Grants.
Thank you. Were going to go away under the new administration. And might happen, might not. It's going to be interesting to see. It represents about $3.3 billion for the whole country. I see this as, hear a lot of talk about it. And I see that it's $360,000 of a $31 million total. So I just want to caution folks about not getting too shook over, this is, while it's every little bit helps, this is not a huge impact into our overall budget.
It isn't for CIP and for general services. We will still continue to set aside some of our transportation dollars to address these issues that we mitigate with CDBG, which are ADA compliant sidewalks and curb ramps. However, Director Kempenaar can better speak to what that CDBG loss would be overall to his department and the services provided by his staff.
That's another 150 grand or so. I get it. Thank you.
Appropriations GAN limit. All right, we're on the home stretch. Every year, staff calculates our GAN or appropriations limit using factors from the California Department of Finance. For fiscal year 26, our appropriations limit calculated is $74.2 million. Within this, the city's appropriations that are subject to this limit are $39.8 million. So we are about $34.4 million under the limit, leaving us about 46.4% capacity.
So with that, that is our biennial budget presentation for tonight. Next steps would be on June 11th, the staff would come back with the budget that was reviewed tonight as a budget adoption. And then in August, we would have the distribution of the adopted budget book and the budget in brief. Any questions?
Yes, question. Are we late so the fiscal year ends July 1st, correct?
June 30th, correct.
Oh, June 30th, sorry. So, you know, a couple of years ago, we adopted the budget in April. And I'm just curious, how, are we on schedule? What's are we kind of in compliance with all the rest of the cities? Are we?
Yes,
schedule.
we are. We went a little earlier last time, but we are okay, and it gives us enough time to upload our budget and get everything produced. We just have to have it formally adopted before.
Wonderful job, thank you.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions, Kelsey? I have just one small, tiny request. When we come back to the final, do you think the police department could produce a little more line items than just police? Cost of police? I mean, it's like more than 50% of our budget, and so I'd just kind of like to see something more than the line item that says police.
Yeah, we can work with the
I
chief
mean,
on
is it broken
getting a
down?
further
to the-
breakdown.
The communications center to the.
There's a lot in there, that's for
I know
sure,
there's a lot,
so
but still, there's
breaking
gotta
that
be some
down a bit
general
more.
categories than police.
Yeah, I hear you, and we'll make it so.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
You have a question? Good question. Thank you. I thought it was a good question, too. I want to thank our staff. This is tough work. This takes a lot of time and energy, and all of the department heads who put together their budgets, and thank the city and Ash for keeping us within our fiscal stability requirements and keeping our what do you call it, that reserve up that we have. That's good. And it's a great budget. I like the two-year budget, too. I think it's good.
Well, thank you, Mayor, thank you, council, and I just want to thank Director Tauer, her team, and our wider team here at the city. It takes a team to have success, and it takes a team here on staff. It takes a team with the city council, city manager, exec team, and our entire team. We're doing well and effective in how we're administering these funds in the best interest of the city, so
And we are doing 4
appreciate
million
your
for
work.
roads, right? 4 million for roads?
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
That's twice what we did before, right?
We, and I believe the county are, to my knowledge, the only, if not, definitely the select few that actually invest general fund money into roads in our region. So it's something that when we talk about a budget being a statement of priorities and where you're putting your dollars, we hear from the community a lot about roads, and so the council's definitely made that a priority, and that's seen in this budget. And we're continuing that in our 10-year forecast as well, so.
Do you want these drafts back, or do you want us? Oh, okay.
Thank you, council, and I appreciate all your engagement in this process leading into this meeting, too. That's something that there's a lot of time and effort into that you put in some of those pre-meetings that we had as we kind of developed this budget, so thank you for that, and then having this public workshop, very helpful, too. Thank you. Thanks, team.
Thank you all. Can we just take a 5-minute break, get caught up with everything before we resume our regular meeting? Okay, 5-minute break.